All right, so this is a suggestion via a donation. Now, the name of the video is Become Who You're Afraid to Be, the philosophy of Carl Jung. All right. Listen, okay, so really quickly. Carl Jung was a Swiss psychiatrist, philosopher, right? He was, I think, one of the main influences to Sigmund Freud. But even though they really didn't get along, he did influence them, right? Sigmund Freud, a lot of what Sigmund Freud was pushing was based off of Jungian morality, let's say. The thing about that is, really quickly, they did not agree on some things, right? Freud was more of a, solo player, let's say, guys, right? He wasn't for the entire group. He wasn't for the shared unconsciousness, let's say, guys, that Carl Jung was, for the most part, pushing at the time. So Sigmund Freud basically was like, listen, the key motivating factor behind the behavioral forces of humans is fornication. We live to fornicate. Basically, if we want to kind of boil down everything, it's basically that and individualism. Right? Like, you are not the shared sum of your ancestors. While Carl Jung was like, you are the shared sum of your ancestors. Like, every single thing in life is exclusively based on you and your ancestors. What's happening in life, what you're destined to be, is because of the shared sum of your ancestors, for the most part, right? Absolute genius, absolute. But there were a couple of issues with Carl Jung, right? And I want to go ahead and point these out before we even jump into this video here. Let's say around the 1910s, apparently he had a nervous breakdown, right? Where he started having like auditory and like visual hallucinations. And I think that is what is used for the most part to discredit anything that he has done or said. Like, bro, he is just crazy. Everything that he's saying is just a hallucination, right? But also keep in mind that he was a very religious person, right? And a lot of his philosophy can easily, like, it's in like perfect alignment to Christianity a lot of the times, right? Like, we are one group of people moving around this planet, and our success is because we are one group of people. That's the reason for our species' success. Basically, I'm summing everything down because this is extremely dense stuff when it comes to Carl Jung. But let's jump into it, guys.
This video was made possible by Wondrium. Click the link in the description to get your free trial. Most people are afraid to fully be themselves. They're afraid to embrace the parts of themselves that might be regarded as unacceptable. Because
Absolutely.
Embracing these unacceptable parts makes them feel uncomfortable. So to escape this uncomfortableness, they divide themselves into two halves, conscious and unconscious. In the conscious half, they construct an ideal image of themselves, an image formed out of the bits and pieces of their past that they deem as good and acceptable. And as a result, in the unconscious half, they repress the parts of themselves that they view as bad and unacceptable.
Ooh.
In Jungian psychology,
Absolutely.
This repressed part of the personality is called the shadow. And unless the shadow is integrated into the personality, a person can never reach their fullest potential. Instead, one will always remain incomplete, fractured, and partial, living a life of regret rather than the full life that could have been.
This reminds me of a song that the band Tool did. We reacted to it, we broke it down, and there were a lot of references to the shadow and a lot of Jungian ideology.
Imagine, for example, that I've solved a few equations and convinced myself that I'm a great mathematician.
Okay.
I might meet a few friends and they tell me that they have a math club. They gather every weekend and try to have a crack at math's most difficult problems. This scares me because if I join, I'll no longer get to be the great mathematician that I've convinced myself I am.
Right.
Instead, I'll be a concrete person with actual strengths and weaknesses. And in this scenario, there are two possible actions I can take. The first action is to run from my shadow and let it grow. I refuse to join the math club and realize my own weaknesses as a mathematician. I get to cling to the ideal image of myself as a great mathematician, but as a result, I lose the opportunity to actually become one. The second action is to come into contact with my shadow and integrate it.
Right, absolutely.
I join the math club and realize that I'm not the great mathematician that I thought I was.
Take this
In the
route,
short term,
guys.
this hurts. I discover that I'm not very good at geometry.
You become
But
stronger.
also that I excel in differential equations.
Right.
I become measured with my colleagues. I have an actual place and rank among other mathematicians. In reality, I realize I'm not the great mathematician I thought I was.
Like, no more Dunning-Kruger, guys. No more Dunning-Kruger. Ban that. That
But
thought
now
process.
I open up the possibility of actually becoming one.
Right.
I can actually improve my skills and rank. In the long run, this ends up being the best decision I've ever made. See, in a way, we often prefer to be pure potential. We convince ourselves we could be whatever we want to be, but don't actively work to actually be something. We just comfort ourselves with the idea that we could be something if we wanted to. This is because when we work towards something, we start feeling our weight in the world. We're measured and ranked. We're quantified and actual. And this actual reality is often less pleasurable to live in than our ideal fantasy. But it's real, not a fantasy. And reality can be improved. But a life of fantasy always ends in tragedy. The path to self-improvement starts with self-acceptance. Only by embracing and integrating our shadow, by accepting the ugly parts of ourselves, by becoming who we're afraid to be, can we reach our fullest potential. But if we reject our shadow, if we pick and choose the parts of our past, personality, and behavior that we like, and
weak.
repress the parts of
Pure
ourselves
weakness.
we fear, we become incomplete and partial.
Right.
And instead of living a full, whole life, we live one full of regrets. But it's up to you to decide. In Jungian terms, will you embrace your shadow or reject it? Would you rather fail in actuality or succeed in mere hypotheticals?
Bro.
And if you're interested in accessing more insights from great thinkers, I highly recommend checking out this week's sponsor, Wonder.
This is an ad. All right, guys. Yeah, so this is the overall ideology, guys. This is what Jung did, bro. That's just absolute genius, right? I mean, his ability to understand human beings was brilliant. I think it's still brilliant. Like, if you were to literally sit and read one of his books, or if if you don't want to read the book on tape, it'll take you out of your shell, guys. Absolutely. And it's funny, I never really thought I was going to get suggested to watch something, Carl Jung related, because I never actually did on this channel. So I don't know how you guys knew that I was somewhat of a fanboy. Didn't know. I didn't know. But I respect it, guys. I thoroughly respect seeing this, guys. I mean, this is a absolutely wonderful video, and I mean that. I think this video could probably help a whole lot of people, bro. Just purely, it's just going to help a lot of people. Just coming out of your shell, because, guys, you cannot sit there and be like, I'm the best, I'm the best, I'm the best, I'm the best. But you've never put yourself against anyone, right? Like, you don't know if you're the best. You're probably not the best, right? Like, it's the theory of, when you first start something, you think you're the best at it because you learned a small section of it. Like, guys, you're not there yet. Do you have the potential to be there? Absolutely. Right? There's no doubt you do have. Every single person has the potential to be something great. You just have to put your mind to it. Right? You have to come outside of your bubble and then instantly be like, hey, listen, I've decided to be great by failing. Like, that, the failing part is the best part of any new adventure. As long as it doesn't harm you physically, right? You can deal with that mental anguish enough to be like, listen, I'm going to use that very specific thing as an anchor that's going to push me forward, right? I can always look back at that moment in the history of me, right? And be like, listen, I failed at this. I remember that failure. That failure grounds me, right? Instead of being the person who thinks they know everything, knows nothing really, and has never been tested on it. But unfortunately, that's just how I would say the masses work, right? But listen, every single day is a day that you can improve yourself. Like, absolutely. But all right, guys, listen. You guys all have an absolutely amazing day and enjoy your day thoroughly. Listen, interact with your shadow. Don't hide from your shadow, guys. All right?